So today we've got Mike O'Sullivan from Lean Nutrition. And for those who don't know, we've recently teamed up with them for initially our Essendon Sports Medicine Clinic. So they're going to be providing the dietitian services for us. I'll let Mike go into a little bit more detail of it, but basically the way their systems work is rather than them renting a room and having someone here, their approach is a little bit different, and they provide a little bit more online support. So having telehealth consultations is a combination of an app, which Mike will go through in a bit more detail. But from what we've sort of spoken about, I think it provides a really good alternative to the normal dietitian model, which helps the patient actually have better access to the support and services that most people need. Right? As practitioners ourselves, we know to get someone better, we need to be seeing them frequently. And I think this is a great way to do it. So I'll let you kick us off. And yeah, keen to hear a bit more about what you do, and a bit of interesting info as well he's planning to go through. So take it away, Mike.
Cheers, Andrew. Hey guys. My name is Mike, dietitian, and I'm going to be presenting something a little bit different. You guys would have been used to seeing, dietitians and dietetics in sort of face-to-face, but I'm going to basically talk a bit about what we've been working on even pre-COVID. So I started this sort of digitalization of dietetics pre-COVID with a platform, and then I moved into developing an app, which is more for healthcare. And I'm just going to run through what we've got, how it works, how it's better, in fact, than traditional dietetics. And also as well, I'm going to delve in a little bit of time into actual nutrition, and I'll be talking a bit about calorie deficit versus lower carb, because I don't want to just be talking about our service and everything. It'll bore you too much, but I want to go into a little bit of that. So I'm going to jump into my presentation, and then you guys can shoot some questions at me towards the end. 1 second. So everybody can see this, yes? I assume.
Yep.
Very good. All right. So I've got a presentation here, delivering dietitian services fully digital. So first of all, who are we? And well, basically it all started, and it's still going, is my private practice, Make the Change, or MTC Diet and Exercise. Consultancy practice that I started back in 2014. Base clinic or office in Thornbury, but then doing outreach services across to medical centres around Melbourne, and then aged care facilities as well. Now, what happened essentially is that back in 2018, I was trying to spread the practice out a bit further, into areas where I knew nutrition would be useful, and I was into fitness and into allied health clinics. And it wasn't long before I realized it wasn't really gaining traction. So we actually had to pull out the services in the end. And I thought there's something not quite right about that whole model, that there must be something that could be changed, that we could deliver it a bit better. So anyways, I was looking around different options, and I decided I was going to go into technology. So I founded a company, Lean Software Technologies. And basically the whole objective is to improve how healthcare is delivered through innovation, digitalization, automation, but still keep that human connection. And you'll see quite a lot of nutrition and lifestyle apps and technologies, which are mainly pre-programmed sort of things and letting people to do DIY. We still want to keep that human connection in place, because we think that's absolutely essential. And I think that's where we fit in to that model of behavioral change, as well as getting the results for people, because that's who we are. We are clinicians. The first thing that we designed was a platform called a health and physical platform. And this guy is operating in the fitness industry, and we have boutique gyms all over the country that are using it. And what we did was that we decided to automate low risk elements of nutrition, which was weight management. So it allows the personal trainer, based upon the inputs they put into a meal plan generator system, that it'll give them the appropriate methods that can be utilized with their client, and then gives them a meal plan, shopping list, recipe sheets, instruction guide, instruction video, all in a 2-minute process. So we really stuck to this automation and digitalization area when we designed this. And this platform also, we utilize it in our actual dietetic practice, because we've got a higher level that we can use where we can design any nutrition method, design any nutrition meal plan and customize it to varying degrees. And we have our own database of recipes that I partnered with Monash University to develop. I think I had somewhere in the region of 18 master dietetic students who've worked on it over the past 2 years in developing more of the meal plans and the recipes and the database from it. But here's where we're at now, is that earlier on in the year, I approached a few of my mates, my physio mates, and I asked them, I said, hey guys, would you ever use this platform? And they said, no, we wouldn't, because, you know, dietetics and nutrition delivery is for the dietitian. That's not our forte. So we're not that comfortable using it. I said, okay, well, how about an app? So what if we were able to deliver our services through an app and then utilize our platform in the back end, which has got the sophistication to do a lot of great work? Would you use it? And they said, yes, we would. So we got to work anyways, and we made a very simplistic app, which I'll be showing you some images in a second. We're actually developing a video of it in operation too, which we'll be sending to you guys as well. It's a very simple one. It's our phase 1 sort of app, which is very basic in regards to delivery model of us digitally in terms of video, phone, and live chat. And we're actually working right now, I'm actually today working with developers to make it more sophisticated. But essentially, it's about making nutrition expertise more available and accessible to a greater range of people. And then they get different levels of support that they can choose from. So the team is myself. I'm an accredited practicing dietitian. My background is a bit unusual. I come from a bioscience, biotech background. I used to work in pharmaceutical and vaccine manufacturing years ago with Merck and GE and Johnson & Johnson. And yeah, I just wanted to get out of the laboratory, start working with people. Still love the science, but I moved more into nutritional science, which I love now. And that's my original background, and moved more into the clinical space then after completing some more studies. Jusuf, he is product director. His background is he's got a PhD in epidemiology and public health, and he's particularly done a lot of research in stroke prevention, and currently is also a postdoctoral fellow in Monash University. Monica is the IT program director. She's got a massive, she's got many years working in technology project management. Is Alicia, she's working in design, and you got 3 other accredited practicing dietitians then as part of the team also. Today's discussion points. So I'm going to be talking about the benefits of dietary intervention, because often the interesting thing when people think of food and nutrition, they seem to look at it in a very narrow window. I see it a bit more broadly. I see nutrition as either a means for fueling. I see it as a means for nourishment. I see it as a means for functional areas like cholesterol. I see it also as well just for enjoyment, entertainment. I see it as a means of bonding, and I also see it as to get a specific outcome. Of course, I'm very much interested in getting the specific outcome and how you can design nutrition personally for somebody which they're looking for that type of outcome. Delivering dietetics differently, why we are going digital, okay, and it'll be interesting when you see some of these points that we did a lot of back and forth talk about 3 years ago, pre-COVID, and it was interesting. COVID came along, and things were going more digital, by the month. So I'm going to talk you through a little bit of that, like why we're doing it this way, what we currently offer and how it works. So exactly what are our services, and exactly how does the whole process and app work. I'll talk a bit about calorie deficit versus lower carb for weight loss, a basic overview. I say basic overview because I've actually got a whole other presentation which goes into the physiology and the biochemistry of those 2 methods, which are the primary methods for weight loss. You'll probably find as well this talk as well is going to be talking a bit more about weight loss. And don't get me wrong, weight loss is huge when it comes to nutrition, the benefits it can work with to achieve weight loss. We work in all sorts of areas. I just thought I'd pick one which I know is quite prevalent. So that's why weight loss is a bit more touched on here. and then finally how to refer. So interestingly, there's quite a lot of evidence to, for several benefits from dietary intervention. And I listed a few of these guys here that, you know, this fits pretty well. And this is why actually I really want to partner with Allied Health, and particularly physio, is because a lot of the health conditions that physio and other Allied Health work with, and podiatry, it does align with what nutrition intervention can achieve. So you've got cardiovascular health, reduced inflammation, reduced osteoarthritis, improved recovery time following injury or surgery, injury and falls prevention, reduced risk of osteoporosis, improved mental health, reduced cognitive decline, dementia, improved mobility, and also less reliance on medication. I'm happy as well. Again, I could probably flesh out every single one of those in one presentation, but of course we definitely don't have time for all of that. However, I do have the some of these articles that I can send on to you guys, and you can read if you like, or look some of them up. Again, as I said, the presentation or today is a little bit on a slant towards weight management, because it's probably the most sort of prevalent issue. But there is an obesity crisis. The more than 2 in 3 Australian adults are either overweight or obese. Even greater problem post-COVID. Yeah, we've seen a lot of people who've put on quite a number of kilos because working from home, the stress as well, and just comfort eating. And they're not used to working at home in that environment so much. You know, when you're at work in an office or a clinic, you tend to go through a very set routine, and people often find that their behavior, their routine is when they go home, they put the feet up and have a few snacks. But what if you're actually at home now way more than what you used to? We're very much a routine sort of animal. We'll start going to the fridge or the pantry a bit more than what we probably need to. So basically a combination of diet and physical activity is the best way to manage body weight. But is nutrition expertise being maximized? I don't think so. It's believed that weight loss is 75% due to energy expenditure, primarily through basal metabolic rate and less in exercise. Therefore, it's essential for weight loss to have nutrition as part of the treatment for obesity or just weight loss in general. Convenience, cost, access to expertise, level of personalization, level of support are the major areas that people look at when they're deciding on a diet or nutrition service to engage with. More stats here. 67% of Australians are overweight, obese, 5% type 2 diabetes. That's getting worse by the year. 20%, this is a very interesting. So if I went back actually even 5-6 years ago, I probably, and I would see a large spectrum of cases of different conditions. And I found that IBS and food intolerance was not that common, but I am seeing, if I'm consulting, I will have 1 to 2 people every clinic, which would be IBS. And we don't know the precise reasons as to why it's happening, but now it appears that somewhere around 20% of the Australian population have got some level of food intolerance or IBS. All these conditions, primarily nutrition-related health conditions, what I see is this in regards to where we're trying to fit in is that this is a huge scale of a problem, and the scale of the problem requires a more scalable solution, particularly from us dietitians, because we are the experts or the clinicians whom this is our forte. And so that's why I'm looking to scale a better solution for the general public. So, as I mentioned, this is something I present to other clinicians as well. I thought was important because it's not that we are going off into digital space for the simplicity of it or for the convenience of it. I started this journey back in 2018 when I saw that there's some sort of issue here. We need to figure it out because clearly we're not doing a good job out there as dietitians. And I put this kind of problems and solutions page here, which just kind of fills in our thought process and what we're trying to do. So here's some of the problems that we identified. Has anybody here ever seen a sole dietitian clinic? Not many. I've seen one myself. Now, how is that possible if nutrition is so big or so important in terms of so many conditions, as well as we'd probably say just weight loss alone? You'll see huge, massive companies like Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, and they're being so successful out there. However, the one profession that delves 100% in nutrition, there's no bricks and mortar. There's no shop front. Where are they? They don't exist. So there is an issue with accessibility. Through our solution, it's more convenient, easy to get access to dietitian through our app. And as I said, the app that we've got now is a type of phase 1 app, and we're right now actually scoping as well for a much more upgraded sort of solution. Dietitians working in allied health clinics struggle to stay viable. So as I said, back in 2018, again, was myself and a few other dietitians, we went out, and 6 months later it fizzled out. Now, one of the reasons why we believe that happened is that we're only making ourselves available once per week or once per fortnight, and that's just not good enough, really. I mean, if the patients in that clinic are not available on that specific time of the week or fortnight, then they can't come to see the dietitian. So it didn't really work. However, our app, we've got our services available Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 p.m. And we've even got a live chat system. So any sort of questions that need to be answered, or a live reception chat as well, that if any rebookings need to be done, it can be done. So here are some of the other, I suppose you need to think about why is there no sole dietitian clinic, and why's happening, why a dietitian is only turning up once a week. Patients are actually seen fewer times in terms of dietetics than other allied health professions. So essentially, we often need a constant need for new patients. I was speaking to an osteopath, it was a couple of weeks ago, and he's been an osteopath for a good number of years, and he's got a caseload of about 1,500 patients over the years, and I'm sure like not all of them come back, but I'm sure there's a good percentage that's return. I did my numbers, and I've seen about just over 2,500, and I've been a dietitian for 10 years. So that sort of model makes it extremely difficult to just have it in a sustainable way. So that's why then us dietitians have to spread ourselves out into all these different locations, making, basically trying to get a referral streams going, all these sort of things to keep ourselves very busy. But we have now our own software platform connected to the app that develops multiple nutrition programs and nutrition tools that keep patients more engaged. So rather than a patient coming back every 4 weeks, we can actually engage with them for a period of time and give them more, so that therefore then we're able to give much better service, and therefore not requiring to have to source continuously new patients. And then of course as well, being able to give that more support gets better results. Traditional dietetics, not a problem. Traditional dietetics has a low value proposition. So basically, we can only enable a result, we can't directly provide it. So let's say, for example, manual therapy with physiotherapy. Of course, I know physiotherapists do a lot more than manual therapy, but for the patient who comes, who's got very stiff or sore, they leave the clinic and they feel, oh, I feel something. Often it's difficult for people or patients to see that high value from a dietitian, because we consult, we pass on knowledge, we give them the tools to be able to get the result and get the goals they're looking for. So to bring up that value proposition, rather than just giving advice, but basically we now use our technology to facilitate more change, more personalized material, more engagement, more convenience. So our platform gives the meal plans, the recipe sheets, the shopping list, the instruction guide, instruction video, live chat support. We also as well automate content to the patient around changing their behaviors of eating during the course if they're signed up to a program. So we're just giving them more tools, more support. Nutrition support is provided through one-on-one consultation every few weeks. So as I mentioned, you come to see me as a dietitian for just a general consultation. I come back in a fortnight, or you might come back in 3-4 weeks. Now, that's not what the patients really want or need for. We can see, because we know that the general public out there are engaging with all these apps at the moment, these lifestyle apps created by, we've got, well, Sam Wood is some guy, one of the guys who did really well with his app. You've got, there's multiple, the Weight Watchers, you've got a multitude of ones out there anyhow, where people are engaging with these apps simply because they're getting more. And they're getting more support. So we can provide ongoing support for patients through our tech programs, meal plans, shopping lists, recipe sheets, instruction videos, FAQs, ongoing email education, a live chat, and coaching. So In terms of what we're offering right now, we're keeping it very simple, but we are going to be building onto our programs very much so over the next few months. We do our standard dietitian consultation, and then you can see here just a few things that we're helping with: high cholesterol, weight, blood pressure, type 2 inflammatory conditions, immunity, gut health, osteoporosis, sports performance, health insurance, Medicare, NDIS, DVA can be utilized for it. And then with our weight loss program, this is over a time period of 6 weeks where you get 2 customized meal plans we designed from scratch based on a lot of questions that we use in the questionnaire. Then, of course, in the shopping list, recipe sheets, instruction guide, videos, eating behavior content. We get 3 consultation calls / videos, live chat support Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, 3 different weight loss methods to choose from: vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free options. In terms of meal plan, we can design specific to those 3 elements. We can put in the food intolerances and dislikes considered. I said 6-week program. You can use health insurance for it. And then if they want continuous support afterwards in regards to check-ins, regards motivation, or potentially changing a meal plan, then we can offer that after that 6-week time period as well. Now, how does it work? We're right in the midst, so we've got a kind of a draft, but we're still tweaking a little bit further. But we've got a video which kind of gives it end to end in terms of the process. But for now, I've got more images, unfortunately. So what we do, we've got a flyer and a poster that we'll be putting up on the clinic, and as well as on the website. The QR code will direct the patient to a registration form. They send the registration form very, very simple. I think there's only 3 or 4 fields where it's just their name, email address, and the clinic location code that they where they have come from, or where they've scanned the code. It automates an email which basically gives them a rundown of what we offer, either consultation or the nutrition or the weight loss program. Once they click from the email which one they're actually interested in, it brings them to a questionnaire or if it was for the questionnaire is for the nutrition program, the booking consultation brings them to an automated system which they can book in to make a consultation. After that, they're prompted to download the app. As I said, it's our phase 1 app, very simplistic. There's an About Us section, there's Connect a Dietitian, there's frequently asked questions, there's Easy Diet Diary integration, which is helping them to record what they're currently consuming, which will give them a breakdown of nutrients. And inside the Connect a Dietitian is where all of the engagement really works. From within Connect a Dietitian, there's a live chat system, but that live chat system that we've integrated into the app, that dynamically can convert into a phone call or a video call. So if it's time for someone's consult, they can come in, reception will just answer the chat and say, okay, you're scheduled to consult with Mike, just 1 second. I'm basically prepared anyways, because I know what time my consultations will be. I get a ping, I accept the chat, and then I open up my video link, and it basically appears on screen from the chat. And that's pretty much it. As I said, we've kept it very simple. The app primarily is our conduit, really, between us and the patient, and then we utilize our platform for making and designing the nutrition and tools that they need to help get their results. So just a quick rundown here of this. So you've got all meal plans come with shopping list, recipe sheets, instruction guide, instruction video. The chat is for basic questions. So sometimes people go a bit clinical and we say, no, look, this is not the right medium. Probably wait for your next consult with the dietitian, or if you want to book in a bit sooner, that's fine. The chat is quite interesting. It's mainly around, okay, hey, I'm one of the snacks there on the meal plan. Is there any alternative I could use? Something simple like that is the chat is often used for. Weight loss programs, as I said, that's what we're very much focused on, and we're working on other programs as well, where there's been a lot of interest in anti-inflammation program and osteoporosis program as well. Dietitian consultation, and with live chat and video complies with the general data protection regulation as well when we were designing. Okay, so enough about the tech and all that sort of stuff. I'm actually going to talk a bit about stuff I'm probably a little bit more interested in is actually nutrition. Now, as I mentioned, this is more of an overview of calorie deficit versus lower carb for weight loss. I've got a whole other presentation which goes into the physiology and the biochemistry and the hormonal expression, all that sort of really interesting stuff in another presentation I'm happy to do with you guys down the track when I get a chance. But this is more of an overview, just to, I suppose, bring in a little bit of nutrition and then the clinical application of it. So interestingly, when it comes to dietary intervention for weight loss, even though there has been an enormous amount of fad diets and all this different sorts of debates on this is the best thing to do, that's the best thing to do, on a purely biological level, there's only two ways really. There's calorie deficit or there's lower carb. Composition or total quantity. That is really the only true two primary methods. And I could look at any diet that has been created over the years, and I can deduce down, okay, if it does work, it's working because of A or it's working because of B. Let's talk about calorie deficit. Energy is in the form of calories or kilojoules and is made up from macronutrients, protein, fats, and carbs. Alcohol are also another type of macronutrient, but not essential. Calorie deficit happens when a person's body needs to burn more than what it's supplied, and the body breaks down fat and or muscle to use the energy. So the thing is that when it comes to energy expenditure, most of the energy expenditure in the human body is the basal metabolic rate. And often people don't really say, well, what the hell is the basal metabolic rate anyways? Well, the thing is that we often think of energy expenditure on a treadmill. Oh, look, I've burned this many steps, I've burned this many calories. However, think about it. The brain actually uses a lot of energy. Our organs are always using a lot of energy. There's a lot of energy used up in digestion. There's heat production happening in our body all the time. So these sort of basic required bodily processes all require energy. And of course, that means each day the body requires a certain amount of energy to sustain those processes at least. Yes, then exercise can be another add-on to that amount of energy. And also as well, depending on how intensive the energy, sometimes that energy, that if you do like high intensity energy, that can increase your basal metabolic rate for, I believe, 24 to 36 hours afterwards. So it does go hand in hand, but primarily most of the calories or kilojoules expended is through the basal metabolic rate. And that's what I've got here just in the number 3. And actually there's a diagram as well. So energy expenditure for the average young adult woman and man. So you'll see here in gray, the basal metabolic rate. Here you've got the energy expended for breakdown of food. And then here is energy expended from physical activity. However, I will put a bit of an asterisk on that one and say that depending on the type of exercise, it does seem to impact the basal metabolic rate over the short term. Either way, it doesn't matter. No matter how much exercise you do, unless it's literally your high-level athlete, the basal metabolic rate will always be more in terms of energy expenditure for both man and woman. The pros and cons of calorie deficit. So it's easy to follow. It's a very simple concept. Eat clean and less. Has a balance through the macros, so you're getting your balance through the proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. There's less requirement to change eating patterns because we know that, generally speaking, most people have a balance or a combination of these macronutrients. Some of the cons, though, choosing a level of calorie restriction can be hit or miss. It's best to gauge off current intake. I get this all the time. I get this quite often in the fitness industry when I present to quite often. There's often a belief that there's some sort of an exact science to exactly how much calories you can tell somebody to eat before you've even taken a diet history from them. That's based on the Schofield equation primarily, and the Schofield equation is an energy estimation. I've even tried it on myself. When I do my calculation of Schofield equation, if I was to eat what the calories, what the calorie amount from the Schofield equation would tell me, I would put on weight. I wouldn't lose weight. So what you do essentially is that you look at where somebody's at right now, ask them basically where they're going with their weight. If they're maintaining it, well, obviously you do a deficit from where they're currently sitting at. And as I said, not an exact science. I wish it was, because there's actually more parts to the metabolism than simply calories in, calories out. I could go on about this for a long time, but man, there's a whole presentation on this. But often what's being missed when it comes to calories and weight loss is the actual metabolic system is way more, there's more parts to it than just the metabolic rate. You've got hormonal expression, you've got digestion, absorption. Hormonal expression is a huge one because the hormonal expression will determine what the body does with the calories once the calories come into the body. The metabolic rate is very much a very simplistic sort of a a process where once the energy gets into the cell, and then it's about, yes, it's more like a steam engine, you could say, in that sense. But people often focus totally on the metabolic rate, whilst they do not think that there's more parts that that whole system. Anyway, hunger can be challenging to manage at times with a calorie deficit. It can lead to fat loss and sometimes muscle loss as well. Overuse of prolonged calorie restriction approach can lead to slowing down the metabolism. Weight regain is more likely in comparison to other methods because, well, if you do a calorie deficit and you lose weight, you're not able to sustain that sort of calorie deficit. So you bring the calories back up and there you go. That's yo-yo dieting, essentially. So there are the pros and cons of the calorie deficit. Lower carb. So look, first of all, anyways, I've got nothing against carbohydrate. And certainly there has been a lot of debate, and there's one side of the fence and the other side. I use both calorie deficit and lower carb methods in my practice because they both work. It just depends on the individual on which suits them better. And often people, when they think of lower carb, straight away they just jump onto ketogenic diet. That's not actually lower carb. That's the extreme version. So when we talk about lower carb, the focus is on the composition more so than the overall calorific quantity. It doesn't have to be keto diet. So basically, the sweet spot that I've come to over the years has been if you get just under 100 grams of carbs, where the keto is probably more than 20, 30 grams, it appears to be sufficient enough. And as I said, you've got two major types, the ketogenic. The ketogenic from a composition perspective is a very low carb, high fat, middle of the road protein intake. The lower carb, higher protein is a lower carb, not as low as ketogenic, higher protein, middle of the road, healthy fats. So there is a distinct difference in the macro distribution between those two sort of methods.
Sorry, Michael, what's the, is there a lot of long-term evidence with keto and stuff in terms of like weight loss? Is it quite successful, or is it still like a bit of an area division in dietetics? What's sort of the, because I know there's like the pro paleo ketogenic crowd and the anti, what's sort of like the consensus these days?
I would say that there is a line, I wouldn't say down the middle, there is, I'd say, less dietitians looking at ketogenic diet as a long-term eating pattern. So remember going back to saying how you can have diet as a means of fueling and nourishment, but there's diet for outcome. I did the ketogenic diet myself for 2.5 months back in 2016, and I would never do it again. It is not a sustainable, for me, on a purely practical level, not a sustainable nutritional method for longer term. And you know why? I actually went and I did my blood ketone levels every day. I got really obsessed with it because I was really keen on doing it properly. And I found even to keep into ketone levels, which were truly ketogenic, was extremely difficult because if you overdo protein, the protein gets converted to glucose by the liver, which then knocks you out of ketosis. So I would say that the ketogenic diet as a means of long-term nutrition method or pattern, let's say, from a purely practical application is not very, it's not doable, I don't believe. I think it's doable for somebody who wants a short-term dramatic outcome. I think fair enough. And I don't see any major risk factors with it. I've looked at the research quite heavily. I don't see major risk factors there. On a practical application, I do have my issues with it because I don't think it's actually long-term doable.
Well, we see it mostly in like keto and variations like paleo and stuff are obviously massive with your CrossFit and HIIT communities, like the sort of, your body fits and your F45s and those guys. It's so you're saying it's probably not carb heavy enough for that kind of population?
Well, the paleo actually has a bit more carbs than ketogenic. So I think the paleo would be, and again, it's just coming from a practical application longer term. I see that the paleo is doable. Ketogenic being done correctly for the longer period, I cannot see it. I cannot see many people being able to do it properly or maintaining it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So the focus of the lower carb, the focus on nutritional ketosis. So I'll just very quickly speak about this nutritional ketosis versus deficit ketosis. Again, I was even, I was in Channel 9 there this morning, and there was a doctor from LA that was on, and he was explaining how that the only ketosis is associated only with ketogenic diet, which is totally false. Ketosis is just the mechanism within the human body by which it is utilizing fat as a fuel. So therefore, ketosis occurs with calorie deficit or anything you'll be doing in regards to you losing fat or losing weight. And so ketosis is not exclusively associated with ketogenic diet. So nutritional ketosis, the human body actually can burn 3 primary fuels: glucose, ketones from fat, and alcohol. So let's just say that an individual does not overconsume alcohol. So that means that on any given second of the day or any given period of the day, that person's cells are burning either glucose or ketones. The body always goes to glucose first. There's more power output from glucose, as well as we can only store the average adult about 400, 500 grams of glucose as glycogen in the muscle. So it makes sense that glucose would be the first round of fuel burning, and secondary then is ketones. And we prefer to store fat because per gram there's more energy in fat than there is in glucose. Nutritional ketosis is essentially where you change the nutritional composition, where you reduce your glucose down from what you consume down, not down to zero, but down enough that at different periods of the day, the body is pretty much has to switch over to fat as a fuel sporadically through the day. And that's what nutritional ketosis is. There's another term called metabolic flexibility. And that's what nutritional ketosis is about as well. However, deficit ketosis is where the body's total amount of energy is reduced to the point where the body has to go somewhere to ensure basal metabolic fuel is being maintained. So you could say deficit is a pretending of starvation. Nutritional ketosis is basically around composition. Now, one key feature of the nutritional ketosis or of lower carb is that insulin is reduced. Now, why is this anyway interesting? Because insulin impedes lipolysis. Insulin itself is a growth sort of hormone. It does way more than just work on blood sugar levels. And insulin will block fat cell breakdown. So when you have got a reduction of carbohydrate, which reduces glucose, it reduces insulin output, there can be, for many people, a really great fat loss initiated. I can even give you one example because I get it every now and then. Engineers are a very interesting patient that I see, where they'll come in with pie charts and spreadsheets and the whole works, and they'll give me so much really great information. And this was last year. There was one engineer. She was on 1,000 calories per day. She was going off to doing one of the Les Mills training programs like 4 times a week. And she wasn't losing any weight at all. I said, okay, look, I don't want to bring your calories down any further. Let's try this composition method instead. So I actually then said, okay, let's try this low carb. She came back anyways 3 weeks later, and she showed me that, okay, I'm actually now consuming 1,500 calories, but I'm doing your lower carb. And she had lost 3 kilos in that period of time. So that would just seem, I know it's an N = 1, but essentially, obviously, you can see it in research as well, that one of the key features that occurs when you do a lower carb is that the insulin output gets affected. So it's possible, I would hypothesize then, that maybe because she was having some carbohydrate, yet her calories were low, it's potential that it was a more hormonal sort of an issue that was impeding her weight loss. And insulin, I see as one of the primary drivers of that. Carb foods then, based mainly on bread, cereal, rice, pasta, potatoes. Starchy foods, so the fruits, legumes, and sugary foods and drinks are also carb. The good news, by the way, is that most low carb diets, including ones I use these days, there's actually low carb versions of pretty much most of those. There's low carb muesli, low carb breads, there's low carb pasta, there's fruits which are fine to use. You've got plenty really good low carb chocolate bars and ice cream now where they use natural sweeteners. So it's not as a difficult diet as it used to be. Pros and cons. Don't need to focus on calories as much. Hunger is not an issue due to plenty higher calories and plenty of protein. Excellent for muscle mass preservation. I've tested that with a number of guys who've come to see me for body composition, and we've got them back on the bioimpedance tester, and I've found really that because they're consuming higher cal and higher protein, they're not cutting their calories, but they're just changing composition. There seems to be muscle mass preservation a bit better. Easy to follow with so many low carb products in the market. Now the cons, it can be challenging when eating out. Everywhere you go, cafe, restaurant, carbs are everywhere. Very difficult to do. So it's a bit difficult for eating out. Higher levels of strictness needing it to initially to work, because you have to get the body to adapt a little bit in the first 2 weeks, which is very crucial. And of course, your usual carbs are very enjoyable sort of food. Yes, there is the low carb versions, but pretty much a lot of them you'll find that the actual natural carb sort of foods are a bit nicer in terms of taste. Okay, so referral to dietitian. Now, basically, typically, I suppose GPs would be your primary source of referrals. I'm basically reaching out to you guys and saying, look, we can help with the outcomes of the patients that you see, but I know that referring is not something that comes natural to us allied health people. It doesn't, even for myself, I could definitely be better at doing it for sure as well. So here's just some pointers I just want to put down anyways for you guys to at least consider. Look, allied health in general are not common referrers. We often sit at the end point of the health system if we're in the referral system. So for example, somebody might be after surgery, they come see allied health. Somebody went to the GP, got some level of primary diagnosis, come see allied health, or potentially to a specialist, and it might come back around into allied health. So often in that referral system, we tend to be at the end point. Okay, so that's one reason. What we've done is that we've created a very short digital referral form. So basically, rather than, we'll say, needing to fully commit and, even saying to a patient, hey, you must go see a dietitian, this form is basically just their details, which basically automates an email to the patient, which gives them more information about us and lets them decide. So in a way, it's a type of referral, but primarily it's raising awareness of the service. But also as well, there's area where you can put in your notes as well. If you want to add something specific in that form, we'll receive it. So we'll know if that patient follows through with getting one of our services. We know there's some sort of outcome that you're trying to achieve, and we'll be able to feedback and report back as well to say how things are going. So anyways, the patient can decide to follow up with us dietitian service from the link that's provided in email, and that can be either a consultation or nutrition program. And then basically, we are here to help with patient outcomes, weight, inflammation, strength improvements, and basically nutrition can help with a lot of that. So as I said, we're trying to, break a little bit of ground here and see if we can really make a good sort of referral relationship. And one of the key things is the barriers is that, the allied health, is it towards their nature to do it? And can we basically make it as simplistic as possible, where it's basically just where you're raising awareness and letting then the patient move on from there to decide to engage with the service. And here's one question. So I did a presentation, I think it was 2 months ago with a group of physios, and one of them, I decided, you know what, that's a very good question. So they're saying, well, I'm not used to broaching a question of, okay, say somebody's got they got a lot of osteoarthritis in their knees or lower back, and you clearly know that they're obese. There's a lot of, they've got a weight issue, and how to broach it, because you're used to treating and bringing it up to say, hey, did you know if you just lost weight, then a lot of that pain, a lot of the issues may actually subside here. So anyways, I decided I would make a slide in it. So how do you broach a subject on weight with a patient? The first thing anyways that I know is people already know if they have a weight issue or not. It won't be a surprise. I find though, however, it's good to depersonalize. So basically talk about the condition and benefits primarily. And here are a few little kind of comments that, I've, made with people or patients in the past, which have been, I found pretty helpful. So there is this stat basically that weight loss, we all know, reduces pressure on the lower body. But do you know that 1 kilogram of weight loss can reduce 4 kilograms of weight pressure from your knees? So you can say that, okay, well, even just a kilo, even 2 kilos, the amount of weight pressure is 4-fold. So it can be an enormous difference for people with osteoarthritis in the lower body. If we have excess weight, our bodies tend to have more inflammation. So that's another way of broaching it, just basically saying, hey, this is what an outcome happens when there's excess weight. Sometimes a couple of kilo weight loss can be the best form of pain management. So especially for lower back injuries, if there's excess weight, certainly that's putting more pressure and that's causing more pain. And then would you like, if I have the system, email you info on our dietitians that can help you here? And that's it. Simple as that. It doesn't need to be awkward or broachy in any other sort of way. Here's the issue and the benefits. And would you like just the dietitians to get an email sent to just on some information? That's pretty much it. Oh yes. So and this is what we're doing with any with the guys, as well as one or two of the other clinics that we're working with. We know that it plays a key role in treating and preventing many health issues, and we want to deliver a service actually, as integrated as possible. So we're basically reaching out to other allied health practitioners and asking them to tell us what conditions your patients need help with. We've actually got a short questionnaire, because we can design any nutrition program for any non-acute health condition, and we want to know the ones that you guys are the most interested in, and we can go ahead and get to work on making a very rounded, time-specific program to basically pass off all the information over. And you're probably thinking, well, why would you do a program of certain things when you just do consultation? Well, when you do a program, if it's, say, for example, and this is something we got a question, was osteoporosis. I got a clinic there who do the Onero program. And they just, when you're dealing with nutrition, what you're really trying to do for something like a chronic illness is you're trying to get people to establish a new eating pattern. So first of all, you need to give them a sort of a foundation, give them a meal plan which shows them how to use nutrition functionally. And then you need to support them and motivate them over just a time period of maybe 1 month to basically move toward this way of eating. And then it's established as an eating pattern for a longer term. So that's why we want to design more of these programs and hold their hand during that process, give them the support that they need. So we're asking clinicians about what sort of conditions that they would like us to work on, and we can get to work on them then. So summary, nutrition intervention is a multitude of benefits which align with many of your typical patient goals. We have digital dietetics as a necessity to provide a better service all round and get better results. Our app is simple and effective. Our platform to create our meal plans is supporting material, however, we think is pretty unique. We're able to do a lot of work with that platform. Both calorie deficit and lower carb have their merits. It depends on what suits the individual more. And we have made it easier to refer through email automation that entrusts the patient to make the next steps if they choose. And that's it, guys. Any questions? What do you think? Anybody with thoughts or questions or anything?
Hi, Michael.
Hey, Chris.
First off, thanks for the presentation. I just had a question about intermittent fasting, and that I'm assuming gives you some nutritional ketosis based around calorie deficit. Do you ever use that with patients, or is that not really something that's that you use with your patients?
I think it's an excellent tool to use with patients. I've got two primary fasting methods that I use with my patients. The first one is 16-8 fasting, whereby people often think, oh, well, you're skipping breakfast. So it's basically consuming food within an 8-hour window, either 12 noon to 8 p.m. or 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. Now, basically, with this, it's not that you eat less or eat differently, it's just that you consume within a shorter time period. And we know from research as well is that basically the amount of nutrition and fuel you have over a 24-hour period makes all the difference, whether you decide to have the food in the morning or not. And even as well, I would say that the phrase breakfast is the most important meal of the day is totally and utterly bogus. It was actually designed back in the 1970s by Kellogg's, if you believe it. And you can actually check, this is actually correct. It was designed by Kellogg's. Breakfast comes to the word break fast. It's just when you break your fast from the night before whilst you're sleeping. So the 16-8 fasting, I'm a big fan of. It's a way of enhancing what their current method is. So if they're doing calorie deficit, a bit of morning fasting will actually get a bit of extra result for them, or if doing lower carb. The second method I use is a bit of a take on the Michael Mosley 5-2. I decided I'd go 4-3. because I found that for some people, those 2 days wasn't quite enough to get it wasn't quite enough for me to not do some of the easier methods. However, 3 days a week seemed to be really good. And on those days, they eat 650 calories. But the other days, they have plenty calories. Their calories are up, but they're consuming a more lower carb. So it's a type of a combined low carb, low calorie intermittently, which seems to get some really good results as well.
Thanks.
Just a question, Michael, about dietary intolerances and stuff. Is there any data sort of coming out about like diagnosed versus undiagnosed? So like you're saying, there's this massive, obviously, jump in, say, food allergies. And we know that Melbourne's like the food allergy capital of the world, and et cetera, et cetera. Is there like any sort of data about like people, like IBS and things like that are often very hard to diagnose, and there's a very long process and exclusion diets and all that sort of stuff that someone needs to go to in order to get a diagnosis. So is there like a trend in seeing like undiagnosed patients that are essentially, I must be lactose intolerant or I must be gluten intolerant? Are you seeing more of that? Or is that is like a patient, because we often will get patients that come to us and be like, oh, like I'm celiac or lactose intolerant. And then when you sort of question them a bit further, they're like, well, oh no, I haven't actually gone through the testing yet.
I'll flesh that out just a little bit before I answer it. So, well, first of all, allergies are more of an immune response. So that one is one kind of an area. You've got IBS, which is more of a dysfunction or an inflammatory sort of state, I would call it. And then you've got irritable bowel disease. So IBD is Crohn's and colitis. So the Crohn, you've got IBD, irritable bowel syndrome, and you've got allergy, which I suppose you could put down the realm of celiac, because that's an autoimmune sort of gut condition. So I'll talk specifically about the IBS, because I think that's the one primarily that seems to be making most of the 20%. Because the IBD, Crohn's and colitis is not showing major, it's not blowing up anywhere, but IBS is. There is not. I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, I follow GESA, which is the Gastroenterology Society, and I think they do some awesome work. However, I do think that they're going down the rabbit hole a little bit with their research. They're now, I've seen more articles come out saying that fructose intolerance is a condition in itself. And I just think, no, I think that's not correct. I think that IBS is a gastrointestinal state. I have had many patients who were diagnosed with fructose malabsorption through breath test. And when we went through an elimination diet, we brought back in the fructose and it didn't respond badly to it anymore. So I would say to you is that, and I will sit slightly on the fence here because more research needs to be done, I would recognize IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, not to be a sort of a long-term disease. It is not insidious. I would consider it to be a gastrointestinal state. And if we can get the formula right for hitting every single angle of the IBS, I believe it to be resettable. And one of the areas that I've been looking at myself and been trialing where I've seen some good results is that if you can touch on multitude of areas at the same time. So if you can, for example, there is a couple of different methods which are microbiome restructuring. There is basically take out irritating foods, which is a low FODMAP. There is the gut mucosa layer, which is a huge one. About 5 years ago, gut hyperpermeability, or leaky gut as it was called, was considered like a pseudo sort of, how would you say, a pseudo diagnosis. And now you've got gastroenterologists and researchers linking gut hyperpermeability to be one of the primary drivers of Crohn's disease. So that is something that we're learning a bit more about, being one part of the puzzle. So I suppose in summary, I think there's a puzzle there where rather than treating IBS in isolation, going, hey, you've got fructose malabsorption, let's just take out fructose. That is not treatment. That is just simply management. And I think as research might move on, I think you might actually find that we might actually get the solution for IBS in the not too distant future, as long as they stop going down the rabbit hole so much.
Yeah, right. That's very different to what a lot of GPs that we have contact with obviously say. It's all about just managing. Yeah, take Buscopan, you know, manage certain foods, etc., etc. So that's like completely different, which is interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting. Obviously, we need to get, you know, dietitians involved a lot more with people sort of flagging those issues with us.
Well, I suppose you could even just on a purely simplistic clinical level, is that, okay, if it's a disease, then what was okay, you can obviously diagnose a disease. You can say you've got IBD, you've got Crohn's disease. I would love if an actual, we'll say even a gastroenterologist or any person in the field really and truly define IBS. Now, if you can't define something, can you truly say that now it is a disease? From what I can tell, IBS seems to be the too hard basket. They've basically done all the testing. They found that nothing insidious is going on. So therefore now we're just going to say it's IBS. And when I hear that it's something like that, it's that gray, I can't help but think that it's possibly more of a state that is going on, not necessarily a disease. And that would be my more opinion on that sort of a condition.
Awesome, thanks.
Thanks, Michael. I think Maiders has had to jump off, but if does anyone else have another quick question? A few of these guys will have 2 o'clock patients, so we might have to wrap things up. Has anyone else got anything else they want to jump in with quickly before we say thanks and goodbye? No, all good. All right, well, thanks very much for your time, Michael. I think we all got a bit out of that, and I think your contact details were on that presentation, weren't they? So
probably.
All right, we can get them off Maiders. So if everyone else has a quick one for you, maybe they can just drop you a quick message or email or something. But yeah, thanks for that. Appreciate your time.
No worries, Chris. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Very much.
Michael.
Fantastic.
Yeah.